speaking now. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our National Secretary-Treasurer, Pierre Choinière-Lapointe, for the National Secretary-Treasurer's Report.
Je ne savais pas que les finances vous intéressaient à ce point. Il me fait plaisir de...
Didn't know you'd be this interested in finances, so I'm pleased to present a report that covers what happened over the last 3 years with some comments that are more prospective in nature, meaning that we have drawn some conclusions that back the resolutions that will be presented. Maybe a little bit of history in order for you to all follow. Our national convention at the last national convention was held at Lac Lémy in Quebec in June of 2019. I am following the order in your app. So today, our national union represents approximately 34,500 members and 36 locals across Canada, and they are divided into 4 regions. Region 1, Province of Quebec, a group of 11 locals representing over 15,000 members, which is serviced by SEPB Quebec Council. Region 2 consists the province of Ontario with 6,000 members divided into 20 locals receiving the services of COPE Ontario Council. Region 3, encompassing provinces of Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Nunavut, and the Northwest Territories, comprised of 3 locals and representing nearly 2,000 members. And finally, Region 4, including the province of British Columbia and the Yukon Territory, with 1 local representing nearly 11,000 members. Generally speaking, there are 3 major trends which summarize the last years since the 2019 convention. Firstly, the amounts spent under the National Organizing Program have been one of the 2 largest expenses for our national union. In fact, over the past 3 years, more than $1 million have been spent on organizing subsidies. However, if we have been able to maintain a stable number of members over the years, the organizing objectives that we had set ourselves at the creation of our union has never been achieved. Indeed, our organization has roughly the same number of members as it had when it was created back in 2004. I'm on page 2. Secondly, it should be noted that significant expenditures were made from the Strike and Lockout Benefit and Defense Fund, so our defense fund. However, it should be pointed out that most of the said expenditures were not made in strike and lockout benefit payments to members. We have figures, maybe $12,000 million to people who were in a labor dispute, which isn't a lot for our size of a union, but we finance campaigns in the regions thanks to this defense. For Region 1, it was a campaign to save school boards following the adoption of an act in the fall of 2009. So $1,296,735.88 have been returned. And then the political assault on Ontario campaign in Region 2, $495,563 roughly has been returned to the region. Region 3, public insurance in Saskatchewan campaign, $175,089 were returned to the region. And finally, and we spoke about that earlier today, the driving public campaign in Region 4, meaning Move Up, $1 million. So this was done on a per capita basis, so depending on how many members are in each region. So you have the amount, and strike and lockout benefits were $57,373 that were returned. And this is a trend everywhere in the country over the last 15 years. Less and less labor disputes. Normally it takes a long time, but there were not very many. So most of our usual activities have been disrupted due to COVID-19. So this saved on operating costs, namely meetings that didn't take place, and several initiatives were put on hold. For example, the National Executive was scheduled to meet for a union training session in BC in March 2020. As you can imagine, this activity did not take place. So let's go on to the financial situation now. We have 4 distinct funds at SEPB. We've got the General Fund, we've got the Defense Fund, the National Organizing Program Fund, and the Convention Fund. The National Union revenues came mainly from the per capita tax collected by our local unions and councils and from interest earned on these monies. The total amount currently paid to the National Union, so you're talking about capita and strike fund, how much does it cost? It's $7.20 per person per month, which is apportioned as follows: $3.95 per capita, so in the general fund, 90 cents of which are transferred to the National Organizing Program Fund, so money sent back to the regions, and the Defense Fund, $3.25. In addition, there's also $77.56 monthly to the National Convention Fund, and that's per local union. So if we have a look at each fund, one after the other. For the general fund, you will see its evolution over the last years. 2019, we were at $1,296,000. 2020 it was $1,648,000, and in 2021, $1,990,000 in the general fund. As you can see, the general fund contains the highest assets of the last 6 years. I didn't give the 3 years prior, but believe me, it's the highest of the last 6 years. And you also need to notice that in years of usual activities, that's to say without sanitary measures or lockdown, organization always generates a surplus at the end of the final year. So that's for the general fund. Let's go on to the defense fund. So between January 1, 2019 and December 31, 2021, the sum of $3,024,762 was paid from the Defense Fund. It includes the monies returned to the regions as well as the 57 for the lockout and strike funds. Currently, we hold part of this fund's assets in cash in a checking account at la Caisse des Travailleuses et Travailleurs Unis. They're unionized with us, with 575. And the other part is in stocks and bonds with an asset manager. So here are the total amounts that we hold in the Defense Fund for the period. It gives us what you see in the table and the evolution that you see from 2019 to 2021. So even taking into account the transfers made to the regions in 2019 and 2020, we still dispersed less than what we gained in the last 3 years, which includes interest and profits. So that's why we have all this money. In other words, our fund, which includes an amount of it's at 18 million, our fund for the moment, depending on the stock market. So you divide by the number of members, and you get about $500 per person. And so this makes it one of the best capitalized defense funds in Canada among national unions. We had a look in other national trade unions, Teamsters, CUPE, and they were around $250 per person per member. And it's one way of calculating this, but you can see that this fund is truly well capitalized. And it's also important to talk about our strike and lockout benefit and defense fund. So we go back to 2007. I'm on page 5. At the beginning, the fund consisted of $1 million that the then CAWs had lent us. So that's 20 years ago. We left the international union, the American union, and we didn't have anything. And so if one of our groups went on strike, we had to borrow money. So in a preventative manner, we asked the Canadian auto workers at the time, and they were really nice to give us this interest-free loan that we have reimbursed since then. So that was in 2004. The table you see, it starts at 2007. 2007, we're at $1,867,000 with similar funding as today, $325 per member per month. And you see the evolution until 2021. So as the fund became bigger, the national executive analyzed better ways to invest these funds to ensure the fund's sustainability and continued growth. Thus, it was decided to adopt a policy on responsible investments and to invest an amount of $8 million. After several undertakings, we decided upon the asset management firm CMARC, which is based in Halifax, Nova Scotia. They were able to fully respect our policy on responsible investments, and I'll get back to that later. In addition, this firm associated with SHARE allowed us to put forward our participation as a shareholder in order to make a difference to a number of social and economic issues that are important to us. However, after several years of existence, it's now time to review in collaboration with SHARE our investment objectives in accordance with the evolution of our values and those of society. This work has yet to be completed, and a resolution will be presented on the matter during the convention. So on page 6, you have an extract from our Statement of Investment Policies and Procedures. It's also on an internet site. I'm not going to read it to you. Just in the beginning, for instance, we give preference to investing in securities of companies that do not employ anti-union policies, that promote occupational health and safety, that provide equal employment and opportunity, and of course do not engage in child labor practices. And we receive reports frequently from the company on what's happening with our assets. And there are some investments that are not allowed for the moment: tobacco, nuclear energy, and military weapons. And that's the end of page 6. And now I'm on page 7. National Organizing Program Fund. $375, so 90 cents for organizing, and we fund 2 organizers per region according to the demands made between April 1st, 2019 and March 31, 2022. A total of $1,047,588 were paid in subsidies to the regions for organizing. Region 1, $411,000, Region 2, $260,000, Region 4, $44,000, and Region 4, $331,000. In this table, you see how the fund has evolved. It may not be necessary to really go into detail here because it constantly moves, or money's coming in and money's going out. So in 2021, you see what there was, 246, but we were waiting for more checks. There was hardly any money in there, but that's not really representative of what you see on the screen. At the end so the implementation of the National Organizing Program has allowed each region the ability to focus its resources on expanding its membership. As mentioned, previously. While this program allowed us to strengthen and protect our regions, it did not allow us to meet our objectives by allowing a net increase in new members. Convention Fund, page 8. So during the 3 years between conventions, we build up the balance of the Convention Fund in order to meet the needs of the delegates for such an event. This is supplemented with additional transfers from the general fund to ensure sufficient monies are available for convention. You remember that I told you in the beginning. So we're talking about what we put in for the convention fund. So you've got all these locals across Canada, and it gives money that builds up, as you can see in the table, year after year. And I don't know if you noticed, but the Congress is going to cost more than $88,958. So there's transfers made at the end of the convention, because originally the convention fund was created to encourage smaller locals to merge. Such our friends in Region 4 move up. They have one local, and they don't fund the convention very much for $77 contrary to Region 2, where there are more locals, and Region 2 funds the convention more. So that was the idea in the beginning. It was like a tax to say, I'm going to have a look to see whether I should merge or not, because it will cost more than a larger local. But we didn't manage to achieve our objectives, because over the past 6 years, only one merger has been recorded for a reason other than the sum to be paid to the convention fund. They didn't say we're not going to merge because we don't want to pay any more into the convention fund. So page 9, let's talk about the impact of the pandemic on our finances. The significant assets in our general fund are at a historic high. We've never had as much money in the general fund, and it demonstrates two things, according to us. First, the automatic per capita tax increase with respect to the CPI has created even larger surpluses than we have had in the past. And the other factor is that in a context of reduced face-to-face activities, the surplus was found to be even greater. It's simple. It's a question of cause and effect. We're a national union. Our representatives are based all over Canada, and getting together is expensive. Conversely, canceling meetings saves money. In that regard, the pandemic has greatly contributed to creating a surplus in our general fund. These monies are kept in a current account, which ensures a capital protection. However, the situation is quite different with regard to the assets managed by CMARC in stocks and bonds. A few figures, if you don't mind, to illustrate the yo-yo effect that our investments have gone through. So on January 31, 2020, just before the pandemic, the market value of our assets was $8,900,000. At the worst of the lockdown in March 2020, our assets lost 14% of the previous mentioned value, with a market value of $7,670,000. By the end of the same year, 2020, the markets had recovered, and the market value of the asset was $9,202,000, higher than early in the year. And on the 31st of April, 2022, the market value of the asset was $10,520,810. We can say with certainty that the impact of the pandemic is truly behind us. And of course, in the report, we talk about equity issues. Our activities related to the promotion of equity-seeking groups are more and more present in our finances. First, as a national president David mentioned in his report, we decided to disperse a 6th vice president's compensation for the president. So a 6th vice president compensation for the president of the Canadian Equity Council, whom we invite to all our meetings and who is entitled to the same compensation. It's Katia Narcisse, who is in that position right now. Secondly, we granted a budget of a maximum of $50,000 annually for the activities of the Canadian Equity Council, CEC. It's in the budget. So we've the budget is equivalent to the highest budget of any of the standing committees in our regions, and it requires significant funds. And we saw what is attributed to the standing committees. $50,000 was the highest. And, you need to translate these meetings, and that is expensive. And we need to fund their activities. Finally, in the event that the National Executive's reform proposals are adopted, the executive has budgeted $1 million for the next 3 years to fund regional projects that will be approved by the National Executive and which aim to promote the rights of equity-seeking groups. And to conclude, for the next 3 years, what can be said with certainty is the finances of the National Union are solid. In fact, they are better now than they have ever been since the founding of our National Union. However, a conclusion emerges. Our needs are at the regional levels. The impressive sums that we had to return to the regions in terms of organizing and financing of defense activities are there to prove it. So the largest expense is not for the National Union, it's for the regions. So while our national union retains its relevance in certain matters such as constitutional compliance, strike and lockout benefits for long labor disputes, disciplinary appeals, etc., when you have conflicts in your locals, it's nevertheless at that time an intermediary that may be of interest for organizing. Today, we have the means to match our ambitions. Our national union has always been a place where equity issues converge. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reading. These issues are relevant and can be financed at the national level. We must innovate to move forward. It's now time to look forward by reviewing certain functions carried out since our creation to fund others that better meet our current needs. This is my report. Thank you for your attention.
Would you like to move your report?
Oui. C'est mon rapport et je le propose.
Is there a seconder for seconded? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much.